Welcome to the moment of eternity. Today we explore one of modern neurosciences and indeed philosophy's most provocative questions. Is our sense of self just an illusion? We somehow have known for millennia, even before science and philosophy, that it's all a cosmic joke, an illusion, a dance stage. All of it, you, your dog, the mountain that you see from the window, and even the window itself. And maybe the consciousness or even your ego, your identity. For centuries, mystics and thinkers have hinted that what we call self may be a transient narrative or just an illusion. Some kind of game that your brain plays to keep you alive and make you reproduce. Now, cutting-edge research on psychedelics such as psilocybin, LSD, and DMT is giving new insights into how our brains construct identity, which is simply the story of you. In this session, we will blend scientific findings, philosophical insights with a little bit of psychedelic salt, inviting you into a journey where neuroscience, ancient wisdom, and psychedelic experiences converge to show us that the ego may simply be a temporary, fluid, brain-made construct. Before modern science cut up the brain for a study, philosophical traditions from Advaita Vedanta to Buddhism argued that our true identity is not found in everlasting chatter of thoughts, but it shows itself when we let go of the ego, we silence the brain and thoughts. In simpler terms, when we break every chain that our parents, education, or society put on our neck as constructs and values which made our identity. David Hume famously maintained that our self is nothing but a bundle of perceptions, like a pair of glasses which we see the world through them. A view later echoed by modern philosopher Metzinger in works like The Ego Tunnel. These ancient insights and contemporary ideas promote us to ask, if we are just a silent observer of fleeting sensations and thoughts, what is the real nature of our existence? Philosophers of both East and West remind us that an idea of a fixed self is a convenient story that our brains tell to put us as the center of the universe, to make us important enough. The notion that I think, therefore I am, is more of a trick than a fact. If you are thinking, then you are not here. It defines our subjectivity while cloaking the underlying impermanence of our identity. Today we'll see how modern science and tradition is catching up with these age-old truths plus experiencing of psychedelics, suggesting that our self is a complex, fluid construction rather than an immutable core. Modern science has made remarkable steps in understanding how our brains generate the sense of self. The DMN or default mode network is a system of interacting brain regions that activates when our minds are at rest and engaged in self-referential thought. It's the main system that's making your life narratives. For example, nights may be scary for me, but may be a calm, beautiful time for someone else. That's the work of DMN network. Studies have shown that the DMN integrates our memories, expectations, and internal narratives into a cohesive but flexible sense of who we are. For instance, fMRI research on psychedelics demonstrates that these substances decrease the functional connectivity within the DMN. That's why we see awe in the same ordinary situations on these drugs. Or we may become more creative on them, seeing same things but thinking differently. On the other hand, these substances lead to what scientists call ego dissolution or traditions call ego death. Under the influence of psychedelics, neural connectivity becomes random, a state described by the Entropic Brain Theory put forth by researchers such as Robin Carhart-Harris. This increase in neural entropy implies that the brain is less constrained by habitual patterns. As we shed our rigid self model, we experience reality with fresh eyes like a child. It's a state of temporary psychosis. Further studies on predicting processing suggest that our brain constantly makes predictions and labels about incoming sensory data, allowing for a more open, unfiltered encounter with the same world. This dynamic interplay between order and chaos in the brain offers a tangible explanation for the mystical experiences during psychedelic trips. Let's go deeper in the psychedelic experiences. Substances like psilocybin, DMT, or LSD have a very profound impact on the consciousness. Users frequently report a temporary loss of familiar self, the feeling that the boundaries between you and everything else have dissolved, memories and identity completely erased. Such experiences, often termed ego death or ego dissolutions, are not just mystical narratives, but are linked to measurable changes in brain activity. In clinical studies, participants who encountered these states have shown significant improvements in mood, creativity, and cognitive flexibility, even cure in addiction, persistence, depression, or PTSD. Case studies even draw parallels between these experiences and near-death experience or NDE, because it's exactly like your identity dies from your body, but your body is intact and you come back after hours. The temporary disintegration of the conventional self model can be both liberating or challenging. For many, it's a radical invitation to reframe the way they engage with life, or they simply break through, suggesting that beneath the surface of our constructed identities lies a vast interconnected awareness which can be accessed when we let go of our egos. This is possible through years of meditation practices as well. This process, though disorienting at times, can lead to breakthroughs to understanding who we really are. The transformative potential of such experiences is increasingly recognized by both researchers and therapists, and also degenerates like you and me. We have increasing fields like psychedelic assisted therapy for conditions like addiction, depression, and PTSD. But of course, if Big Pharma allowed it. Moving from laboratory to the realm of philosophy, we ask, who is the consciousness that remains and experiences without any remaining ego and identity? Ancient meditation practices instruct us to cultivate the witness, a state of pure awareness that observes thoughts and sensations without judgment, the silent observer. When we relax the identification with the mind chatter, we glimpse a deeper truth, that our true self may be the silent observer rather than the content of our thoughts, the observer which is the same in every human rather than being different like ego. Philosophically speaking, the ideas underlying mind-body dualism have been challenged by both neuroscience and contemporary thoughts. While René Descartes famously declared, "I think, therefore I am," modern interpretations suggest that thought and awareness are separate facets of consciousness, one always chatting and labeling and one just observes silently. And a very profound question arises here. If I can observe me, my thoughts and identity, so I'm not those thoughts and identities. It is the unchanging observer that remains when all else falls away. This perspective finds resonance in Eastern teachings as well as in existential and phenomenological theories. Most thinkers argue that it's not the transient thoughts but the constant background of awareness, a sort of inner screen where the drama of life is observed. This non-dualistic view propels us to see the self as an emergent property rather than a fixed entity. And when psychedelics loosen the grip of our entrenched self model, we momentarily experience the liberating perspective firsthand that we have a deeper entity which is fixed and maybe eternal. The insights emerging from psychedelic research and philosophical inquiry carry profound implications for society. If our self is indeed a construct, a dynamic narrative woven by our brains, then our beliefs, cultural biases, and even political systems are built on unstable ground for more control and power, used by puppeteers to pull the strings. So recognizing the fluidity of the self can encourage a paradigm of mindfulness, or in more accurate words, mind emptiness, empathy, openness, and creativity. Instead of clinging to fixed identities, society can embrace change and nurture psychological and social flexibility. Researchers are now exploring how these findings can revolutionize mental health treatment. Psychedelic-assisted therapies promise a new way of treating depression, PTSD, and addiction by dismantling rigid, self-reinforcing thought patterns. Moreover, understanding that free will and identity might be construct challenges the conventional notions of self-responsibility and agency, opening philosophical debates about morality, legal responsibility, and human rights. On a cultural level, the dialogue between ancient wisdom and modern science fosters an enriched conversation about consciousness and the human condition. As people pushing toward openness and freedom from old man-made nonsense constructs, governments and institutions may have to consider new insights and policies and might eventually shift toward methods that promote mental flexibility and well-being rather than rigid control. The future may see an integration of therapeutic practices grounded on both neuroscience and philosophy, a synthesis that could transform how we perceive life and our place in the cosmos. As we have seen today, modern science and ancient philosophy converge to challenge our most basic thought, the self. Whether it's through the lens of fMRI scans or the reflective practices of meditation or use of psychedelics, the evidence suggests that our sense of identity is not fixed but a fluid, emergent process. The experience of ego dissolution isn't an escape from reality. It's a call to see it anew. Thank you for joining this dive into the mystery of the self and transformative potential of psychedelics. If these ideas resonate with you, please share your thoughts. Subscribe for more explorations at the intersection of mind, matter, and mysticism. And let's continue this conversation into the future. Remember, while the self might be an illusion, the awareness that observes it and the questions it inspires are as real as our curiosity, or may be eternal.